Okay guys, this is gonna be fun. So I'm gonna show you a short cinematic sequence that I shot yesterday morning in the freezing cold, and it looks like it's one long uninterrupted shot, but it's not. So what you have to do now is find all the hidden cuts and transitions. Okay? Go! Okay, now put your answer in the comments and then I'll show you how to do each of these hidden cuts yourself, and by the end of the video, you'll know the right answer. Don't cheat, okay? Because I'll know. Okay, guys, now, movies that look like one long shot. There are quite a few actually. Birdman and 1917 are probably the most famous ones that came out in the last few years. And I love movies like that because if done well, it's not just a gimmick. It makes you feel like you're right there, you know, because everything is real time. Now, some of the hidden cuts used in those movies rely on CGI effects. That's just how it is these days. But not all of them. A lot of those hidden cuts and transitions you can do yourself. But before I show you, there are two really important things you need to know about when making a one-shot video. And that's planning and blocking. In my sequence, there's no conversation or anything like that, and that makes everything a lot easier. It's also a very short sequence. I could have easily done it without the hidden cuts, you know, like actually one long shot, but I want to show you the hidden cuts. So, you know, and there's actually a valid reason to use hidden cuts in a short sequence like this. I'll show you in a bit. But anyway, so if you want to make a video or a movie that looks like one long shot, you have to measure everything and plan everything. You have to know how long it takes to go from point A to B, how long the conversations are, and if you're going to build a set, first you need to know how long the set has to be. Exactly, because everything's real time and you can't cut out any parts. You can't have a scene that's shorter than what it takes for an actor to go from point A to point B. You know what I mean? It's crazy once you start thinking about it, the repercussions it has, making a one-shot movie. But that's what I love about it. So, if you want to do it yourself, first thing you need to do is measure and plan. Everything, exactly. Distances, but also time. Both have to match. And then we have blocking, and I think that's the fun part when making a one-shot movie or video. Blocking is simply working out the details of an actor's moves in relation to the camera. It's like a dance. Now, why is that so important? Well, I'll give you a super simple example. In a normal movie, whenever there's a conversation between two people, the camera cuts between those two people the whole time. When one of the two is talking or to show you the reaction on one of their faces, the camera also cuts to close-ups and to wides. You know, that all happens during a conversation to make it more interesting. But you can't do that in a one-shot movie because you can't have the cameraman running back and forth between two people like a crazy man every time they're about to say a line. That would look ridiculous. But then on the other hand, you also don't want to bore the viewer. So what you need is a reason for the camera or the actors to move so that everything looks natural. In a conversation, for example, you could write the story in a way that both actors face the camera. when they have the conversation. Or maybe something happens in the story that asks for the camera to move. There are a bunch of possibilities. And what I did in my sequence is use sound as a reason for the camera to move. Okay, now let's see if you found all the hidden cuts in my sequence. The first cut or transition is a classic. It's the whip pan. It's very popular among YouTubers, but usually, of course, it's a transition from one place to another. And in my sequence, I want to make it look like one shot. But why would I do that? Wouldn't it be easier to just do one shot? Well, yeah, but first of all, I want to show you all the hidden cuts, so that's why. And there's a second reason, and that's exposure. I don't want to rely on auto exposure, and the light in this shot compared to this one is totally different. So making that cut allows me to set the exposure for both shots. And if I'd want to, I could also change some other settings. So it is very useful to make that hidden cut. And like I said, in my sequence, the sound is the reason to move the camera. You hear the sound, I pan the camera 180 degrees, of course with a hidden cut in between. Then Joanna moves back into the frame, and from there she starts walking again. And it's a different shot, a profile shot. If I would have moved from this shot to this one without anything happening, without a reason for the camera to move, then it could look unnatural. Not always, of course, but a lot of times it does. So that's what I mean when I say a reason for the camera to move. And using a whip pan to make a hidden cut is super easy. It's the motion blur that hides the cut. So what you have to do is end the first shot with a whip, and then the next shot you start with a whip. And then in between you can make the cut in the motion blur. Simple as that. This one's more difficult, and I think this was the easiest one to spot, right? I don't know. I used the tree in the foreground to make a cut. Now, I made it difficult for myself because of the camera movement. If I just would have moved sideways, it would have been a lot easier, but I also made an arc around the tree. And you can see the difference in both shots. The speed and the angle, it looks a little bit different. I tried to hide it, but you can still see it. And the magic of this hidden cut happens when editing. So for the first shot, I went all the way past the tree, and then for the second shot, I started before the tree again. And then it's a matter of masking out whatever's on the left side of the tree so that you can see the second shot underneath. It's not super easy to do, it kind of depends on the shot, but I'll link a tutorial on how to do this in the description. So that's the foreground object transition or hidden cut, and anything passing by in the frame will work as long as it covers top to bottom. And there was a second one of these. It's a slightly different approach, but same principle. Right there, when the camera drops under the table. So the tabletop here is the object that makes the cut. And then finally, we have another classic, and that's the color match. End the shot with a color covering the screen, and then start the next shot with the same color, and that's where you make the cut. You could go from one place to another again, like the whip transition, but here, of course, I want to make it look like one shot. Another way to do this, an easy way, is use the sky, for example. So pan up to the sky, tilt up to the sky, tilt, right? English, so difficult. Tilt up to the sky, and then make the cut and tilt down again. That always works, but remember, you need a reason for the camera to tilt up. Don't do it randomly, because then it would look ridiculous. There has to be a reason for the camera to move so that you can change angle and position and whatever. And I guess that's it, guys. 4 hidden cuts. Did you find them all? Be honest, some were not that difficult to spot, right? But if you plan everything well and you measure everything, you could make every video look like one shot, and it's super fun to do. So it's definitely something you have to try yourself. Thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next one.